This lesson is about trig functions of general angles and inverse trig functions. So we know the trig functions for 30, 45, and 60, and for other angles we're going to use the calculator. The sine, cosine, and tangent buttons are found around the middle of the calculator. And to use degrees, you have to make sure that the calculator is in degree mode. For the TI-30X, it is found at the top left. Push the DRG button and then select DEG. So for number one, it's really straightforward. All you have to do is hit the sine button on your calculator and then type, and you'll see something come up like this, and then you'll type in the 37 and end the parens and then hit equals. And that result will be 0.6018. And then similarly for cosine, same thing. That's your input, and you will get out 0.7986. And the last straightforward one is tangent 37 equals, and that result is 0.7536. And all of these are rounded to 4 decimal places appropriately, but you guys can do rounding, you're awesome. Okay, so now D, E, and F, those functions are not on the calculator, but we can get them because the cosecant is the reciprocal of the sine. So what we're going to do is 1 divided by the sine of 37 and end your parens and hit equals. And that result is 1.6616. Next, the secant of 37. And again, the secant is the reciprocal of the cosine, so you would do 1 divided by the cosine of 37 and then hit equals. And that's going to be 1.2521. And last but not least, the tangent and cotangent are reciprocals of one another, so you would do 1 divided by the tangent of 37. And that result is 1.3270, rounded appropriately. Next. Okay, so this number 2, you guys, is exactly the same as number 1, with the exception of the angle is in the second quadrant, or it's above 90 degrees, but less than 180. So here's the angle. Oh, right here. So there it is. Good. So the sine of 111 is 0.9336. The cosine is negative 0.3584. The tangent is negative 2.6051. Now, the cosecant, again, I'm going to write this out because I want you to remember this. So for D, it's going to be 1 divided by the sine of 111. Don't forget the end parentheses and the equals. And that result will be 1.0711. And then similarly for the secant, I would do 1 divided by the cosine of 111, and I will get negative 2.7904. Yay! And then last but not least, the cotangent, 1 divided by the tangent of 111, and hit equals, and then I'll put that in its spot, negative 0.3839. Okay, now what's the deal with these negatives? Well, all trig functions are positive in the first quadrant. Just the sine and the cosecant are positive in the second. In the third, it's tan and cotan. And in the fourth, it's cosine and secant. And you can remember the positive because it is, the Cartesian coordinate looks like a plus sign, or the rectangular coordinate system. We're going to get into that a little in another lesson. Next. All right, so here's the deal. What happens if I know the sine, the cosine, tangent are one of the trig functions and I want to get the angle? Well, this is how you do it. Well, we all know that the sine for this example here is opposite over hypotenuse, and that's where they're getting the 5/13. But how to get back to the angle? That's what I need to go back to the angle. We're going to do something called using the inverse trig functions. Okay, inverse trig means it will return what? Yes, you guessed it, the angle. So here we go. So to do this one right here, you're just going to type in the inverse sine of 5/13. And when you do that, theta will approximately be equal to 22.6 degrees. And again, I rounded this to the nearest tenth of a degree, so 1 decimal place. Perfect? Yay, let's do. All right, so here we go. We have some trig functions that we know of a certain angle, and we want to get the angle. So for part A, we're going to press second sine on my calculator, second button sine, and then this will come up. And you put in 0.5623, end your parens, and hit equals. And then after you do that, rounding appropriately, you will get 34.2 degrees. Part B, second cosine. And then this thing will pop up. Eight, 5, 9, 8, and I get, when I round appropriately, you guys, 30.7 degrees. And then second tangent, yay, and it's going to pop up looking like this. You put in 3.256, la la, and rounding appropriately, you get 72.9 degrees. Now the next threes are quite easy, similar to before. Let me pop them in, and I'm just going to write the results, and you can check yourself. So 74.0 degrees, 89.9 degrees, and 33.0 degrees. Okay, I'm going to do one extra. I'm going to call it G, and it's not on your paper. What happens if I have cosecant of theta equals 1.1? Well, I want to get the approximate value of theta. Well, cosecant and sine are reciprocals, right? So that would mean that the sine of theta would be 1 divided by 1.1. So to get theta in this instance, we would do second sine and type in 1 divided by 1.1 and hit equals. And in this case, you're going to get theta is approximately 65.3 degrees. Next. Okay. So number 5 is kind of a review of the 30-60-90 triangle and the 45-45-90 triangle. So here's 45-45-90. And the other one is 30-60-90. I only put one 45 in because the other one's 45. So we need to figure out, and yes, we can use the inverse trig functions on our calculator, but I'd like you to look at the triangles for a minute because it'll help you later on with other things that you're going to do in this section. So I need to find the angle whose sine is 1/2. So I look over here, the side opposite the 30 is 1 and the hypotenuse is 2, so x equals 30 degrees. Perfect. The angle whose cosine is 1/2, let's look over here. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So if I draw another 30, 60, 90 triangle, here's 60. Adjacent to the 60 is 1. The hypotenuse is 2. So x is going to equal 60 degrees. So what you're going to do is look at which triangle fits the bill. Which angle of that triangle helps you solve this problem. Now part D we're going to do next. Tangent of x is equal to 1. Well, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So the only angle that allows 1/1 to happen is 45. Think of it as the tangent of x is equal to 1/1. 45, 1, opposite is 1, adjacent is 1. So for part D, x is equal to 45 degrees. And last but not least, part C is kind of funky looking, but if I look, the only triangle that has square root of 2 in it is the 45. And if I look at the cosine of 45 degrees, that's 1 over the square root of 2. And yes, these do not look the same, but they are equivalent because we rationalize the denominator. Let's go way down here. 1 over square root of 2. I can multiply the top and the bottom by square root of 2. So I get square root of 2 over 2. Ta-da! So the answer to part C is x is equal to 45 degrees. This is a mess here. I hope you can figure it all out. We'll go like, okay. So now you can do the homework assignment associated with it. Have fun.